I'll give you a little hint about the guest we got coming up in the next hour, just a few minutes away. It has to do with the hacked emails, with ClimateGate, and so much more. So stay with us on that. No more Mr. Nice Guy as we fight these globalists trying to seize control of our economy for world government. So you don't want to miss what's coming up. We are live on this Black Friday, as they call it, 27th day of November 2009. Dubai in deep water as ripples from debt crisis spread. Times of London. Fears of dangerous new phase of the economic crisis swept around the globe yesterday as traders responded to the shock announcement that a debt-laden Dubai state corporation was unable to meet its interest bill. Shares plunged on weak currencies, battered for more than £14 billion, was wiped from the value of British banks on fears that they would be left nursing new losses. Nervous traders transferred the focus of their anxieties from the risk of companies falling to the risk of nations, states defaulting. Investors owed money by Mexico, Russia, and Greece saw the price of insuring themselves against defaults rocket. And it goes on from there. Another headline out of Bloomberg: Dubai debt delay rattles confidence in Gulf borrowers. Dollar hits 14-year low against the Japanese yen, prompting fears that a further surge could hurt a fragile recovery in the world's second largest economy. And what's gold doing right now? I haven't even looked in the last few hours. I know it's been rising upwards quickly. So I hate to say, see, I told you so, but man, the globalists are really killing the dollar. We'll ask our guest that's coming up why he thinks that is going on, and a lot more. All the big new developments on ClimateGate. It's confirmed the emails are real. The very code to the computer system, the computer models they use with notes from the programmers about how to engage in fraud, how to cover up the decrease in temperatures. KXAN locally did another report I saw the other night. I don't even watch television, maybe 30 minutes a day, saying polar bears are drowning and dying, even though their numbers are way up, even though they go out on ice floes to hunt. They're the greatest land swimmer. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The fraud. Meanwhile, Climate Czar says hacked emails don't change anything, Washington Times. And they're now looking at other countries that mirrored their fraudulent data for the IPCC and the UN. New Zealand's climate data shows clear evidence of fraud. So we'll be going over that as members of the Australian government resign over what's happening in that area of the world, as well as New Zealand. Another author points to ClimateGate's Perry Mason moment when they're caught red-handed. Another great article on the Wall Street Journal, How to Forge a Consensus. The impression left by the ClimateGate emails is that the global warming game has been rigged from the start. UK scientist, case for climate fears is blown to smithereens. Whole theory should be destroyed and discarded, and UN conference should be closed. We should end this anti-scientific nonsense now. UN's Copenhagen Jamboree is a scandal, and it must be stopped. So we're going to be breaking that down. Also, ClimateGate, 5 Aussie MPs lead the way by resigning in disgust over the carbon tax. This is out of the London Telegraph today. Australia is leading the revolt against Al Gore's great big AGW conspiracy. They're caught in a criminal conspiracy to loot economies and have the UN government decide who can have businesses and who can't, and banning fireplaces, space heaters, taxes on television sets already in California. Just as the Aussie geologist and AGW skeptic Professor Ian Plummer predicted it would. We're going to get geologist Ian Plummer back on. ABC News reports that 5 frontbenchers from Australia's opposition Liberal Party have resigned their portfolios rather than follow their leader, Malcolm Turnbull, in voting for Kevin Rudd's government on a new emissions trading scheme. So they're ramming that through right now. We're going to go to break, ladies and gentlemen, and come back with somebody that I have been chomping at the bit to get on, like no guest ever for some reason. It's because, well, he's so well-spoken, so focused, has such a great track record of research. Hey, folks, this is Alex Jones, and I want to tell you about OxySilver, the world's most advanced silver hydrosolution. Scienceandpublicpolicy.org is his website. It is excellent, chock full of key, real hard data. Lord Christopher Monckton, 3rd Viscount of Brenchley, of Monckton and Brenchley. And he was a UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's one of his chief policy advisors, so many other important positions. He has since been a director of his own specialist consultancy company, giving technical advice to corporations and governments. And he is also an award-winning researcher. But rather than go over his lengthy pedigree and amazing research, let's go directly to Lord Monckton, joining us from the United Kingdom. Sir, it is wonderful to have you with us.
It's grand to be with you.
Amazing. We've got you for a full hour. Our listeners are just absolutely in ecstasy right now because you and your clear, straight, piercing voice and intellect have been one of the main people just annihilating these frauds. It's good to have you with us.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere. You can get up off your knees now, take off the white gloves, and you no longer need to touch your forelock.
Well, I don't want my children to be slaves to the UN and a global government tax, and so I got to tell you, sir, we popped champagne last week when it came out those emails were real, and I would imagine you were popping some champagne.
Well, we've been following the people named in these emails for years. We thought they were linked, and of course these emails establish exactly how they were linked. And it's very, very interesting because we had suspected there were just about 24 people who, round the world, mostly this side of the Atlantic and in America, who were putting this global warming scam together and actually driving it, rather than doing what the likes of Al Gore and the politicians do, just drifting along with it because they don't know any better. These are the people who have known all along that there isn't a problem. And they've been bending the data and admitting to each other they've been bending the data for the sake of concealing the fact that their data are no good.
Absolutely. I mean, this really proves a conspiracy here, doesn't it? You have called for the prosecution of the climate criminals. You were the first. Now many other representatives from Australia to the United States are calling for criminal investigations.
There's going to have to be a criminal investigation by the Information Commissioner, whose job is to make sure that publicly available information is available to the public, and that officials like these creeps in the Climate Research Center and their colleagues all over the United States as well were prevented from hiding, destroying, tampering with, shuffling away the data which we paid for, and it therefore belongs to us. And they used a series of excuses. They said, well, there's a Data Protection Act. They said the data belonged to other countries' weather bureaus. Hey, this is weather data. It's not a state secret. They were trying to say that they were emailing each other. They were saying, we are not going to give this data to anybody. They were even saying they wouldn't write any learned papers for journals which required, as part of the peer review process, that all the data and all the computer code and all the intermediate calculations should be shown and archived so that other scientists could check it. They were determined that other scientists shouldn't be allowed to check their work because they knew that they were simply making things up. These people are financial fraudsters. They took at least $20 million that we can trace in recent years in so-called grants for so-called scientific research, and they did it on the basis of a financial and scientific fraud. So they should not only be locked up for concealing and destroying data that had been requested under the Freedom of Information Act by other scientists, they should also be locked up for financial fraud and international racketeering.
Well said, sir. We're going to come right back after this quick break with a long segment, and I would like to blow by blow get your detailed knowledge of this, some of the history, who these people are, what their bigger goals are, and then specifically right through ClimateGate, all the different sectors of fraud that they have engaged in, like covering up the FOIA request, persecuting scientists, colluding to persecute people, which is racketeering, which is extortion, fraud, grant fraud, and now their response saying, so what?